Hey guys, welcome to this video. Here, let me adjust this camera. I don't like this angle. There we go. That's better. Hey guys, welcome to this video. This one we're going to be talking about the mass media, or the fourth branch of government, as at least I like to call it. There are others that agree with me. Just a few quick definitions. Medium is a type of, what type of communication is it? Media is like a plural of medium. So mass media is like all the different kinds of communication. Newspaper is a medium. TV is a medium. I won't use this often, but just in case I do, I want to get that straight before we keep going. All right. So mass media is any means of communication that can reach a large audience. All right. Simple. Here are some very 90s examples of mass media in the images here, but it's most important: social media, radio, magazines, television, and the internet. All these things make up the mass media. So what is it used for? Most of you probably inherently already know the answer to this, even if you don't have a textbook understanding of it. It's essentially used for interest groups to get their message across. It's to get out information and to get you probably to think what they're thinking, to bring you into their bias. It is somehow, some way sharing a message. I just like this image. This is a very old image. From the early 1900s. As you can see, bias and the ideas of fake news, they've been with us for a while. So public opinion and the mass media. Hang on. So one of the biggest purposes of mass media is to influence public opinion. Now, in a technical sense, it's as the definition says here. It's the collective idea and opinions of the majority of the people. It's what we all think. It's if you have if you were going to say something and it's everyone thinks that, well, that's public opinion. In the school, it could be a public opinion that going all virtual is going to suck. That would be public opinion, at least within the school. Just take a moment and appreciate this graphic, because even way back in the day, this silent picture time, they understood mass media as being a future problem. We've known it was a problem. So media has a few jobs that we expect it to do. The first one is its role as a gatekeeper. It introduces ideas to the public. If something happens, we rely heavily on the media to inform us about it. Most of us aren't following C-SPAN, which we've never really talked about, but it's just straight broadcasting of what happens in Congress. We don't go and read every congressional report and Supreme Court statement looking at exactly what they said. We rely on the media to tell us a summarized version of what they said. Mostly because of some of the things they put out are thousands of pages long, and we don't got time for that. Just like some of you won't have time for my video. Yeah, I'm throwing shade to people that'll never hear it. It's fine. They're also watchdogs. They're checking out for corruption within the government. They're investigators. They're looking out for things. They're trying to make money. They're trying to sell a story. And we're trying to stay informed to keep the government in check. This is part of how we maintain a limited government and maintain informed voters. Their last job is scorekeeper. This can make or break politicians. This is how much coverage are they going to get, who's done right and who's done wrong. They're keeping track of that. When you do something wrong, they're going to make sure you know. When you do something right, that's points in your favor. And they're going to make sure people know how often you're doing right or wrong. If you're doing a lot wrong, they are going to keep reminding the people. You're going to keep racking up that score. If you're doing good, it can also rack up their score, and they're going to hype you. Now, bias has a lot to do with this last job, and so that's going to be on you to figure out. I can't do that for you for the rest of your life. You have to figure out what the bias is. Doesn't mean the news is fake. It just means it has a bias. Speaking of bias, again, cartoons out of the early 1800s. Excusez-moi. Already talking about fake news and bias in the media. All media is bias. All people are biased. We all have our own ideas that influence our thoughts and what we say and what we do. Now, we can try to be neutral. We can try to present just the facts, but we still have our own slant to it. And I think internally you all know this is true. So there are a lot of things to look for when thinking about bias. Balance, loaded words, sensationalism, images and headlines, and context. Yes, I just read the slide. Balance you're just looking to see if both sides are represented equally. Are they talking about what both sides thinks? Yes, they may agree with one side more than the other, but are they talking about why each side thinks what they think? Are they using really charged words? If they're using things like failure or savior, it's an absolute fantastic success, or this was an unmitigated disaster, they might be pushing it a little hard. In very rare circumstances are those words really necessary, and if they're using them, they're trying to catch your attention. Probably because they want you to think that one side is really good and one side is really bad. I think a lot of this is like things you know, but maybe haven't just thought about before. Another big one, images and headlines. It's not uncommon for a headline and a picture next to it to not be from the same things. They could use a picture from from one event, a headline that seems really crazy, and the story have very little about that. But man, that headline is really convincing, and that picture looks scary, and ooh, you can change public opinion because they're probably not going to look at the whole thing. The last part is context, and this is the one that you have to put most effort into, are facts and quotes, and is everything that they're using accurate? Are they misusing them? Are they giving them context? Or are they just like throwing a quote out there, like a 10-second quote of them saying something? Well, how do you know what they're saying that about? Did they say something before or after that? Make sure that they're giving some context. And they may say what they said before or after. They may not play the whole quote, and that's okay. But just make sure you're getting that context, or that they're giving the context somehow. So here's an example of this. A right-wing group put out this story showing how DACA and Dreamers, which, as we talked about last week, are people that were brought here as children illegally and have grown up in the United States their whole lives. They were brought here by their parents. They had no choice in the matter, and so they're given special legal protections. A lot of groups were against this, and so they post this article about DACA and show these DACA people are people trying to get fair treatment. Well, this image is from a gang event trying to rally for gang peace, and so there's a picture of gang members, but the article is about DACA. So you can see like people look at this and they're like, these are gang members. We don't want them in our country, but the article is about DACA. So you can see the disconnect. So here's another one. Take a look at this headline. U.S. mistakenly bombs allies in Syria. Holy crap, we bombed our own people. That sounds terrible, right? How are we this bad at war? Well, if you read the whole article, which most people don't, the allied group called in an airstrike. The problem is the coordinates they gave for the airstrike, mind you, like when we do that, we can't actually see everything. We just have the coordinates and we put the bombs on the coordinates that they're given. They gave us their coordinates, not the enemy's coordinates, our allies' coordinates. So we bombed our own allies. Coordinates are right, target was wrong. Yeek. Terrible situation, but we didn't attack our allies. It was a simple error, a very tragic error, but not like what they're presenting it as. Just again, I appreciate this image. Fake news, humbug news, cheap sensation. 1894. Nothing's new in this world or in this country, guys. I can't say that enough. America has been dealing with the same problems forever. And I know these problems seem like it's always getting worse, but just know it's not. And we've been dealing with the same thing for a long time, and we're still here. Let that be your words of peace this week. So, fake news. You've heard the term, you've heard the phrase, it's thrown around. This is a dirty word these days. It always has been. It comes and goes in the public mind, but as a historian, we know it's always there. And nowadays, fake news is probably a worse problem. Anyone can create a legit looking website. Heck, I can make a website, put an article on it that I typed up myself about how rabbits are also not real and they're actually Soviet spies. And I can put like a New York Times header on it and make it look really official, but that doesn't make it so. You can usually figure that out by looking at the URL, and you all are smart enough to do that. We saw a lot of this in the 2016 election of these fake sites being made and stories on Facebook. We all know about the bad news on Facebook. We all know about it. You better know about it. You don't trust things on Facebook. All right. Many of these sites were created in other countries, And a lot of foreign money was used there to change opinion, not only in foreign countries, but in the United States to favor the views of these countries. And that's legal. It's just dangerous, and you have to be aware of it. Who is the audience that these articles are intended for? What is the goal of what they're doing? You have to ask these cells that. You can't just read passively. I realize it's a lot of work, but not much. If you get in the habit of doing this, it'll just come second nature to you. Not to beat a dead horse too much, but here are 3 sensational headlines, quite literally 100% false. None of these things happened at any point in time, yet they got thousands of views. People read them. People freaked out about them on both sides. Rightfully so. A lot of these things are kind of scary. They're not real, but that doesn't mean people didn't believe them. They look legit, so you have to beware. All right, fake news is not news you disagree with. Fake news is not news you disagree with. Fake news is what is news that is outright false or intentionally misleading from minor sources. Okay? It is not mainstream media, ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox, NBC. These are relatively reliable sources. And if you take one of them, any one of them, and compare it to one of the others, you can figure out their bias. If you really want to figure out their bias, pick 3. That's what I do. I just look at 2. At least look at 2. All right? They're not going to say the exact same thing because they all have their own goals and their own bias. And we know this now. All right? These news agencies have bias. I can't say that enough times. But they are legitimate sources of news. Fake news is not news you disagree with. Did I say that too many times? I don't think so. I think I said it just enough times. All right. So things to watch out for fake news. And I feel like, again, these are things that most of you are aware of. If it has lots of pop-up ads and banners, it's a red flag. If the URL ends with .biz, .ch, .ru, .de, or etc., that's a red flag. Google the site if you're unsure. Google will usually tell you. Google's pretty good about that. Look to see if any other reputable news sites have the same story. If they're the only ones, either they pull in your chain or we have a lot to worry about. Probably the first. 9 times out of 10, it's the first. Actually, I'm going to say like 9 3/4 out of 10. It's the first. Just for the record. The last thing is if it makes you angry or invokes any kind of major emotional response, it was probably designed to do that. And that's a big old red flag. All right. That's the end of that video. Tune into my other ones. I hope you liked it. Have a good week, guys. And here we go to all virtual. Here's to you. I'll see you out in Cyberland.